You can make all the miniature dungeon terrain you want to, but if you don't have a way to effectively and quickly deploy it at the game table in real time during the game without bringing things to a screeching halt, it's kind of all for naught. So, make a staging box. To demonstrate how I used mine, I'm going to put you in first person behind my Dungeon Master screen to show you how I used my staging box to deploy Arthan's Tomb, which is a small but complete dungeon intended to be run in a single session. I featured it in a very recent video, and I'm not going to retread ground about that dungeon itself. You can go watch that video. But first, let me show you how I built this staging box and why I made the decisions that I did. And remember that our sponsor is Heroes Horde for you 3D printers out there. Excellent selection, including all True Tiles lines. First, you need to get yourself a box, a good mid-sized box. It needs to be greater than 12 inches wide in at least one direction. And the reason for that is, typically, most of us make dungeon tiles in intervals of 2 or 3 inches. 12 divided by 2 is 6, which means you'll be able to fit multiple tiles stacked into each of these nacelles as needed. Also make sure the box is in pretty good repair. This one's near pristine from the store. If it's not dented and stuff, you'll be able to take good internal measurements. Now I'm using some scrap double corrugated cardboard, but one certainly could use foam board or any other sort of hard material. And I'm cutting rectangles which are equal to the depth of the box when it's on its side by its longest dimension. With this particular box, I decided that I'd be able to get 4 rows out of it because each of them would be 3 inches tall. And you can vary it depending on the size of your box, but I really recommend not going smaller than 3 inches. For most dungeon rooms, after you stack up the tiles, put any decor and miniatures on there, it all piles up and you'll want that headroom to keep all of a single dungeon room in one of these nacelles. I also marked out exactly halfway along the length of these on both sides. And I cut some of these smaller rectangles. These are equal to the depth of the box, again as it's standing up facing you, by 3 inches. These are what's going to set the height of your storage cells. And all of these are simply hot glued together into a lattice like you see me doing here. It's not worth trying to talk about. You can see what I've made. Might be a little flexible or uneven, but that's perfectly fine. We're going to fix it once we glue it into the box. So, set it into the box. Ah, that is a satisfying feeling. And this isn't heavy-duty lifting, so we don't need to glue along the entire length. Really, we just need a few inches of glue, and it can be toward the front. Hot glue gives just enough working time to sort of finagle and make sure that it's level and straight. This is where we'll fix any non-straightness. Also note, the front of that lattice is about a ½ inch recessed into the box. That was deliberate. It's to leave room for the flaps to close. And lastly, I simply need to make some carrier trays. And by make, I mean cut out. I'm using graphics medium chipboard. This is that brownish stuff you find at the back of a legal pad, but you can buy it in bulk like I do if you want. There's links in the video description below. But even an extremely thick cardstock or corrugated cardboard would work for this. Very simply, cut out rectangles that are equal to the size of your cells. And personally, I cut them a few millimeters short in each direction just to make sure they would go in smoothly. And that's it. Now again, I built Arthan's Tomb in a previous video. Here it is again. I've laid it out before game time, and now I'm going to pack it up into the storage box in reverse order. So I take the carrier tray for cell number 1, and room number 1 of the dungeon goes on that. All of it fits pretty nicely. And yes, there will be occasions where you have features that are pretty big, they might not fit within the 3-inch cell, and on the odd occasion it does come up, I throw the big stuff in the bottom right cell of the staging box. Thanks to these carrier trays, you don't have to be reaching toward the back for that miniature that's stuck back there. You move the tray and everything comes out with it. While we're at it, here's rooms 3 and 4. Very nice. Room 5 doesn't have to be very organized. If there are circular elements, I try and pin them between 2 other things that don't roll around. And again, the biggest dungeon tiles I have are 6 inches by 6 inches. If I need a bigger tile, I take 2 smaller tiles and I put them together. Since I know that that's my personal standard, I know that my cells can be 6 inches wide, or really about 6 1/4 inches. This box was 13 inches wide, which was just perfect. Little extra margin. So here is my actual game table. When I am DMing, this is the other night after the game. Got my screen and my papers and stuff, and off to my left I always have my staging box, sitting in a chair away from the players. Up until game time, the flaps of the box are closed. I don't want them to have any inclination of what they're going to experience that night. I really don't like the approach of having a whole dungeon on the table. It removes the mystery, it allows for metagaming. If there's a secret door to be found, well then they know where to search. So they enter the dungeon and I go to the top left cell and I pull out room 1, dump its contents onto the table and just take a few seconds to put them in place. And as I am physically doing that, I'm talking to the players. I'm reciting what they're seeing. I generally have that memorized or I can make up stuff on the spot. So in this way, there's no dead air, there's no empty time at the table, there's always something happening or being heard. By the time I'm done, I can say, "What do you do?" And then it's back to them. Simple. Moving along, they open the door to room 2, the storeroom, so I pull out the tray for room 2 and set it down on the table here. Trying to do that with my camera. It's a pretty awful job here, but by now you get the gist. I also intend to decorate this storage box, theme it up D&D somehow, but just haven't had the inspiration yet. I want to do something really special and cool with it. I just don't know yet. Now I know what some of you are thinking. He just did an entire video about a cardboard box. He must really be desperate for content. I'm Wylock. Make things and play games.